but the only way to do that is for them to just work something. And like the best things, and you know this because you've been training for a long time, the best things you do now are the things that you were killing as a white belt. The things that I do the best now are the things that I was doing great as a white belt.
Yeah, that's true.
So like this is the time period that like you got to figure all that stuff out, white and blue. If you have somebody interfering with your evolutionary process too much, I think it kind of robs the person of that process. So, and we've talked about this a little bit too, where I've said before that like you've asked me questions. It's like you teach something in a class, but when I watch you train, you don't do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You said that to me before. Not with everything, but with some things. And because I think that there's a certain amount of value making someone go through the evolutionary process, like the way I do certain techniques now, it's because I've been doing that technique for 20 years and it's evolved over like me hitting obstacles and that were unique to me. And now I do it the way I do it now because it's the way it works best for me. But that's not the way I learned it, and it may not necessarily be the way I teach it. Sometimes I teach the techniques the way I originally learned them, not the way I do them now. And because I think it's important for the student to go through that evolutionary process for themselves, because they may end up at a slightly different variation in me. But that's not what everything. Some things I think the evolutionary process might be more universal, and then I just show the end product, to save them from going. Because like, as a coach, you want your students to be better than you, faster than you got there.
Absolutely.
And that's the way it should be. Every generation of students should be better than the last one's faster,
Right.
And because they don't have to go through the same freaking problems that you did. You can cut through that. But I think it's important. I think it's important to make them go through some of the problems. You know what I mean? And that's all I mean when we had that conversation, or whenever that came up in the past. I just think sometimes, depending on what it is, and it may be unique to the individual too, but like sometimes I think it's important that somebody goes through that process themselves to figure it out. Because then when you figure something out and you really work through it, man, you own that shit afterwards. Like you really get it, rather than someone just telling you something.
Absolutely.
Like if I told you how to build a freaking like a motorcycle engine, if I just walked you through it like one time and did it for you, it's going to be different than if I said, here's the tools, take that shit apart, put it back together. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. It may take a while, but you'll figure it out. And then you're going to fucking know that engine inside and out.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's same idea, I think. I don't want to mislead anybody that's listening, because like we're not saying that like we just show you a basic thing and then like you're just on your own to figure it out. Like if you're having problems, like as you develop, we will give you and show you all, because all of the problems that you're going to run into, I already know what all the problems are going to be, but if I try and tell you, it's like, look, here's the move. Now when you do this, like 15% of the time you're going to have this problem, somebody's going to like mess it up, and then you're going to switch to this thing, and then like 10% of the time somebody's going to do this to mess you up. Like it's too overwhelming context. They don't have the context yet, so they have to take the basic format of it, go out there on the mat and roll and train and blow it a bunch, and blow it like 15-20% of the time, and say, so they can come back and say, man. And when you come up and you'll be like, yeah, so Ben, how's that triangle working for you? And you're like, oh, it's pretty good. But like 20% of the time, people do this fucking one thing that's fucking me up. And it's like, okay, see, now he's ready to take the next thing. He's got context. Right. Yeah. So then it's like, okay, when that happens, I grab my foot, I do this, I shimmy and like, or whatever, and like we adjust the lock. Because if you would have told him that at the first time, it would have just went right over. He would have forgot it, and like it never would have applied. So, Absolutely. But now he'll remember that shit. Now we'll remember. So yeah, for sure.